What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of A Thinking Man's Podcast. I'm Joseph PIRCHER. With me, as always, Tommy STILES. And today we have the pleasure of being joined by Matt Christman, neurosomatic therapist and LMT. Matt, how's it going, man?
What's up, guys? Appreciate you guys having me on. Appreciate the opportunity. This is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So for a little background, Matt works out of MI40, and I'm going to kind of just kick it to you. Give us a little bit of a background of what it is that you do, what your business is like, and we'll kind of just let it flow from there.
So basically, I'm a neurosomatic therapist, which basically is between what I do and massage therapy are a lot of differences. I mean, both of them address the muscles and tissues, but NST therapy, just doesn't stop at the muscle. We address the ligaments, look the joints, the bones, kind of everything. Kind of look at the body as a structural, see what's going on. Basically, go from the middle of the body out. So mainly a lot of things I look at a lot of the measurements from the pelvis, see what's going on in the pelvis, because people say the feet are the foundation, but I like to say the pelvis is the foundation, because where's your body centered from? The pelvis. Everything moves, the hips, all that, the coordination, all stems from the pelvis. So basically what NST does is like we postural realign the whole body and bring everything back into space in its postural alignment. So using muscle manipulation and all that to kind of help bring the body back to balance and moving and functioning like it should, which is pain-free. So that's the goal with what we do with neurosomatic therapy.
So Matt, so say I book a session with you, how does that process go, just so people can get an insight? Because I will say, like, I've worked with him multiple times all over the country now, and he can diagnose something based off what the feedback I give him, what I'm feeling, maybe in a movement or how I feel day to day, and then take that and run with it and build a whole treatment plan for the session. I mean, anybody who's followed you on Instagram sees the results you get in just one session. People leave, not all the time cured 100%, but feeling a lot better than when they came in. So run through like what a typical session's like.
So a typical session with me would be, kind of do like a postural analysis, kind of see, like I said, from the beginning, kind of see what's going on in the cranium, see what's going on in the pelvis, and see what's going on at the lower levels of the leg, and see how your body's moving in space. So sometimes I'll have them walk down the hall, kind of see where the gait pattern is, because, that's where you see a lot of the imbalances is when you're walking, because you're doing that every day. And so I'll kind of do like a posture analysis first, then we'll do like a gait pattern analysis, kind of see where the dysfunction is stemming from. And so once we do that, we see where all the misalignments and all the dysfunction stemming from, and we go to the source of the issue instead of chasing symptoms of what's going on, whether it be a hip issue or a shoulder pain issue or a neck issue, low back, knee pain, elbow pain, all that. So where your body's positioned when you're walking and or standing, you can tell a lot about what's going on, what muscles are moving the bones in that position, and I can help deal with muscle manipulation and other works to bring you back to alignment and help with restoring the proper function of the tissue that's causing that pain.
With how hands-on you are and needing to see people moving and, like you said, walking, squatting, whatever these like kind of physical tests are, is the business model, are you only able to service people in person?
I've actually done servicing people overseas. I've done people from the UK and actually helped tremendously with them, just kind of doing a slight posture analysis, see how they walk back and forth. I mean, it's kind of hard when Zoom, because you kind of have to really look into it, but just show them how to properly use like a lacrosse ball or foam roller. Like a lot of people, you see that foam roll, they just roll across like they're having the time of their life on it, which is the incorrect way of using it, right? So, I teach them how to properly foam roll and do some self-myofascial release to kind of help alleviate some of the issues that they've been dealing with. And I've actually had some pretty good success with several people from the UK. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Chris Beer. He's a 212 pro in Canada. I work with him as well. Every once in a while, like he'll message me like, "Hey, I got this going on," and we'll go back and forth. I'm like, okay, let's see what's going on here. And usually it solves a lot of the issues he's having, or at least mitigates the issue from being any worse. So, and he's actually getting ready for the Toronto Pro in 212. So I work with some people from Canada, UK. So it's pretty cool. So I'm able to have that reach. I want to be better at it because I just want to be, I can't be everywhere at once. So I mean, I do some of these travelings within the US, but hopefully sometime I could do like a little UK tour. So, but yeah, it's helping people online. I had some success.
Yeah, I mostly asked for myself so that we're going to talk after this. But anyway, moving on with the podcast and on my own injuries. Now we're going to talk about your business, and that's the main thing. But also, you mentioned something to me off air, and I wanted to make sure that this was part of the conversation. You're in contest prep yourself right now as a bodybuilder, so you work down in MI40. You're constantly because of that environment that you're in. And because of how credible you are, you're constantly servicing like some of the biggest names in bodybuilding across all the divisions. How do you manage that as you get into contest prep? Because, Tommy and I have talked. Tommy's going through contest prep right now as someone that manages like an entire online roster of clients. He trains in person. And we've talked through some of like, just some of the differences being off season to, shredded contest prep the way Tommy is. So I'm just curious, how does that work for you? Because I'd imagine being that it's such a physical hands-on thing in person, you really have to bring it every day. You have to bring an energy every day. You can't just mail it in, at the end. So how is that for you managing all of that?
Man, it can be tough sometimes, but I use gratitude as my fuel. So,
Nice.
that keeps me going every day. So it's like I get to put like when I wake up, some people dread Mondays. It's like me, I get to put my jersey on and go in, let's do this, So Mondays and Tuesdays, actually all week is all pretty busy, but typically Monday I can see up to 6 to 8 people in a day. So it can be tough sometimes trying to squeeze in your workout. There'll be times like, let me save off this 90 minutes so I can have 15 minutes for my pre-workout to kick in, and I can warm up for 15 minutes and then knock it out within that 45 to an hour time frame. So I give myself about 90 minutes to train. And that's very tough to do at sometimes because I want to help as many people as I can. So sometimes I'll sacrifice that and I'll work out later sometimes, depending on what's going on. But yeah, facilitating my schedule with workouts, I've got a pretty down pack on how I'm going to do it. So it's not too bad. A lot of people ask, how do you train after working on so many people? I was like, as long as you keep good technique, I mean, with your when you're treating and all that, you can last forever. I can go all day. I mean, I don't know if Tommy told you this, but I used to be on the road with the WWE as well.
Yeah.
And so you're working on constant, wrestlers like constantly. So it's just as long as you keep good technique, working on people who, I still work on people constantly over 200 pounds, 230, 240.
Yeah.
Take a small, for example. That's no easy project, but yeah, as long as you keep good technique, you can last a while. So I don't ever get too tired, and it never affects my workouts or anything, and I'm able to get it in. And just structuring my calendar definitely obviously helps a lot. So that's just being mindful, leaving at least a 90-minute time slot to get it done. So yeah, just planning and being prepared.
Yeah, respect, man. That's no joke. And then so when you're going through contest prep, who's working on you? Because you can't work on yourself.
Bro, that's the worst. I'm like, so me and Ben try to coordinate. He's like, I worked on him a couple of times. He's like, hey man, let me know when you want to get some work done. Like we do trades. And I was like, yeah, man, I'll let you know. And I'm just never, it's just like, I'm constantly go. I'm like, it's like, I was like, I could get some body work here, but I think I want to go home. So there's some times where I neglect myself, but
sure.
I mean, the beauty of some of the equipment I have, like I have the newbie by New Fit, and so sometimes I'll bring that home and kind of patch myself up and kind of go through different ranges of motion. It helps to a point, but it's definitely nothing in my opinion will ever beat hands-on touch from people, because that will help really facilitate better outcomes in my opinion too. I mean, the newbie is a good addition. Like when I work on people, that's like me having a second person in a sense using that. So the way I use it strategically. But yeah, I try to work on myself, but it's far and few between. So I'm going to really focus on at least getting once a week, get some body work done by either Ben or my other colleague, Luke. So definitely going to be mindful of that this time, because I know it'll benefit me, obviously, because I preach it to everyone. So I might as well, do myself, right? So
Yeah. You got to sell yourself on your own service. Yeah.
Exactly. I was like, yeah.
I kind of use that as a segue. So you do use the new fit in your practice. That's, I would say in the last like 5 years, maybe the last 3 for sure, that the newbie and the new fit has gotten a lot of traction on social media. So it's almost like it became hype and everyone wanted to try it. And now everyone's using it now, because you don't, and then some people with enough money started to own them and start working on people. And I mean, Matt, you know my horrible experience with the first guy I used the new fit on. I'm not even going to bring his name up, but how do you go about incorporating that into your business? And what are some common errors you see of other practitioners that are using it?
I think there's a lot with the second question on that, which I want to point out. There's a lot of people out there that use it that have no idea what the hell they're doing. I'm just like, why? Like every time I say like, why are they doing that? It's just, they either overuse it. Like I know someone who used it and said, I used the newbie, but I didn't like it because I was sore for the next 2 weeks. I was like, because he overdid it. I mean, it's like, for me, I don't train people with it. I actually have a lot of feedback from people that say they get a better result out of the therapy work than they do with just training with it. Yeah, I mean, you get more neurological activity when you're training with it during it, but you can also activate those neurons in the musculatures during the recovery process. It'll actually stick because you're getting that neurological sticking point in a sense from the recovery aspect from the therapy, where it'll stick. And I have people say, oh, I did glutes. They'll see me on a Monday, they'll do glutes on a Wednesday or Thursday, like, oh my God, I had the best glute pump, or I had the best chest pump. So yeah, it's really, people I see using it, I don't necessarily agree. And they also say a lot of things, like they speak in absolutes, like, yeah, this can absolutely help you with this and this. I can show you. And it's just like, I don't like people who speak in absolutes like that, because me, I say it could possibly, like, it's, you don't want to.
It depends.
It depends, So I was like, yeah, it may, but it's like a lot of these people think it's like that. It's the greatest thing ever, which, not taking anything away from it, it's a great product.
Cool.
And I've actually had client who suffered from palsy in his hand, and he wasn't able to get full function in his hand. We did some aggressive treatments with my hands-on as well as a newbie. Now he has full functioning in his hand. So there's definitely something to the newbie, and it definitely helps a wide population of people, from whether it's people who suffer from paralysis or partial paralysis, or just not getting that neurological feedback from nerve damage and things like that. So it can help. It could help facilitate some of those neurological activities to help with that musculature repatterning and education of the musculature. So yeah, I mean, I love it. There's just some practitioners there that just don't have any business in using it. There's a lot of people that do the online course and like, all right, here you go, you're certified. I went to the actual practical in person. I think that makes a big difference. If they would make that mandatory, I think people would get better outcomes and use it in a safer way than some of these practitioners out there doing it.
Yeah, in my experience, if you're, feeling like you've just been electrocuted, like to me, that's not beneficial towards life, let alone training. But I mean, if it's zapping your metabolism to the point where you're in a contest prep and you're using the new fit, and now I'm just full on depleted and my coach isn't aware of how much electricity I'm being pumped full of, there's just this huge cascade of problems that can arise. And I trained on it, and the same thing you said is I found better use as a therapy tool, not in my training, because in training it was just like, I like to train really hard. I sweat a lot. The pads are falling off. I'm attached to this cart that's 3 feet from me the whole time. It took away from my love for training, and I just didn't see any extra benefit from it.
Yeah, for sure.
Where I think it could be at, and maybe you've seen this, is like coming out of a surgery, restoring movement patterns. People with that fall into that category. But for bodybuilders looking to take their training to the next level, I don't see its practicality in training. For me personally, I'm sure there is some, but
Yeah, there's some for sure. But yeah, I'm on your side on that. I mean, I've seen people do a peak week protocol with it, right? And they train the shit out of them. I've seen people on the Olympia stage and their legs just faded.
yeah.
Right. Kind of like Dexter Jackson last year, right? You see his legs weren't up to par because I believe he was overtrained on the newbie. And I know he won't touch that thing ever again. So
Interesting. See, he's one of the first people I think of when we hear or talk about people that are training with it, because I feel like he had a bit of a resurgence, and they kind of gave credit to the newbie, and then now I hear you and you're like, man, having a down year at the Olympia could have been from that. So what, give us an example when would it make sense? I mean, I know that this is kind of tough because it all depends. There's a specific context. But could you give us something like, obviously coming out of a surgery, or I did some work on it. Funny enough, I had the exact experience that you mentioned on both ends of the spectrum. So I did, my arms have been a priority for until the end of time. But I did an arm work on there with someone that looking back, I don't think they really knew what they were doing. And I could literally not bend my elbows for 6 or 7 days. It was insanity. And then
did you train the whole workout? Sorry, I'm gonna cut you off. Did you train the whole workout with it?
Yeah,
How long
and it was like 45 minutes. Like it was just, I went to a place just to do arms, and it was like a recovery place, but they had like a room with, some cables and some dumbbells.
Right.
And, I was just willing to throw any resource at it. Like if this could work. And then I had that experience and I was like, I'm probably never going to do this again. And then later on, I got linked up with somebody that actually, they made their pitch and it made sense to me. And I've had tons of like shoulder, pec injuries to where I really struggle with stability. If I'm not actively training stability at the shoulder, a lot of my upper body training goes to shit. And so I got linked up with this guy, and I had the exact experience that you mentioned, where I would go and I would, let's say Sunday, I would go do this new fit work. And then Monday, Tuesday, I had push pull. Those 2 workouts would be the best workouts of my week or my month. So interesting there. Now, you had mentioned there's nothing better though than just hands-on, like hand to tissue.
Yeah.
What about some of the other tools that people are using? I'm not asking you to out people or say shit doesn't work. But what's the truth, like in your perspective? Because for example, I see people that constantly are posting, covered in all these cupping marks. And if this is something you use or you love, no disrespect, I have no idea about this stuff, but I've looked into it a bit. And from what I saw, a lot of the research that backs it, like, was super biased or regulated by the authors themselves. So it just seemed like bullshit to me. What's your experience with some of these other tools?
It's nothing magical at all. Cupping, I personally am not a fan of it.
Okay.
I just call it an expensive love bite, I mean, that's pretty much what it is. I was like, let me put a couple plungers on there too. I was gonna do a spoof video where I got a bunch of mini plungers and just plunge the hell out of their back.
Dude, please do it. I'll share it.
Just take a dig at the cupping crowd, which no disrespect to them. I'd say to people, I'd say to others, like I have clients ask like, what do you feel about cupping? I was like, I'm not a fan of it, but if you notice the difference with it, have at it. As long as you're feeling better, that's all that matters. If you feel like you're getting results, more power to you. If you feel like it's making you 1% to 2% better, do it. That's fine. You should be walking around, looking like you got sucked off by an octopus, but hey, that's fine. But I mean, that's looking at the literature. There's not a lot of backing on it. It just doesn't really facilitate what they did as far as what they claim they do. But I also feel like there is useness to it. I think people place it in static positions, right? They just stick there, like, okay, they just lay there. Like, I believe if you do it in movement, like moving your motions in different ways, I think there's benefit to cupping if you're doing it with movement. But other than that, doing it statically or in general, I don't think there's too much benefit to it. But like I said before, if anyone out there that does cupping and you feel a difference and you do it, hey, respect. That's fine. As long as I respect that, as long as you're getting results, you feel like you're getting results, keep doing it. And then I guess another thing, a lot of people think Graston tools, right? If you want to kind of roll into that, Graston tools. I have Graston tools. Does it break up fascia or tissue and this and that? No, it may help with like separation and things like that of the tissue, but I use it to get more blood flow to the surface. Like I can do a couple scrapes and you'll get that nice red pigment there. I'm like, yeah, we got some good blood flow going on there. And that's what I use and to help, facilitate blood flow and making the treatment go a little bit faster and get more movement going into the working body parts that we're hitting. So I'd be a fan of Graston. It's not like the most magical thing ever. I mean, if you're leaving out with like bad markings like bruisings, then someone's not doing it right, because you're not supposed to be leaving there like you just got in a freaking bar fight.
I think it can be said with a lot of these modalities, because I was going to ask the same question Joe did about like, because I preach to my people all the time, like, hey, we need what is your recovery budget?
Right.
Determine how much money you could spend per month on recovery work. And then from there, let's find the best practitioners in your area. If it's not local to me, or I can't send them to you if they're in your state. And we'll go from there. But how does one decide? Because to me, it's like, any one of these modalities can be abused. And it seems like the common theme of the people abusing them is the people using them don't even have a tender grasp of anatomy and phys. They think if I cause pain and give bruising, that triggers a result in that person's mind and they leave happy for the session. It's like, you shouldn't look like you just got in a motor vehicle accident coming out of Bodywork. Like,
these people are wearing it like it's a badge of honor. Like, I'm doing recovery work. You better believe it.
Right. I've often said Michael Phelps is the one who made cupping popular from the Olympics.
Oh no, I blame that fool.
10 years ago, I think that's where cupping became a thing.
Yeah. I mean, you see his back all covered. I was like, what is that?
And he wins gold. And it's like,
he's on steroids.
Right. And then that's when the whole craze happened. Everyone started selling. Everyone's a cupping therapist after that. So
yeah, I see people buying their own cupping device, like their own cupping set to do at home. And it's like, man, I brought this up a little timidly, if you notice, because I didn't know if, you could have jumped on here and said that that's the main part of your business, and then I just shit on it. So I was careful how I approached it, but I feel better hearing you say that, because I've just always looked at it like it's total bullshit.
Yeah. And I have to agree on that. And I feel like also there's a lot of people out there that are in the bodywork space. There's actually a lot here in Florida. I'm not sure how it is in other states. I have to look at the laws, but you have to have a license to touch someone, right? Like I'm an NST because I went to the Center for Neurosomatic Studies for neurosomatic therapy. When you come out of school, you're licensed, and you're a certified neurosomatic therapist. You also get that school is 18 months, and to get your LMT license in the state of Florida, all you have to do is 500 hours. My schooling was almost triple that. Okay. So the anatomy course of that is similar to taking a master's course in anatomy. And before I went to the program, I had a bachelor's degree in human performance and health promotion. And I was like, I know anatomy. Man, I went to that school. I didn't know a damn thing. Just everything he was covering. I was like, wait, what? What's this? You have to know all the cranial nerves, what they innervate, all this stuff, because we deal with nerve stuff too, like nerve patterns, where they innervate, what causes that, and certain pain patterns and things like that. But there's a lot of people out there in the bodywork space. They're not even licensed massage therapists. They're just like, oh, I got these cupping tools and these Graston tools. I'm ready to work, and they do some pretend stuff, and or the massage gun, things like that.
Let me hear it. What's your take on the massage gun? Let's hear it.
It has its place. I mean,
okay.
It's what we call in the massage world tapotement. So it's just kind of like, just vibration. I mean, there's some people that react to it very well. Some people will react very well to it. Some people, it's a little too much, your body will respond, but people will have a positive response to that outcome.
So knowing that you're looking at things from a perspective similar to Tommy and I, similar to a lot of the people that are listening, you're a competitive bodybuilder in your own right. How would you, or how, or where, or when would you use a massage gun if you were going to use one? When does it make sense?
For me, it probably makes sense.
Pre-training?
Or Probably
Yeah.
pre-training, I would say. Yeah, pre-training, kind of warm things up there. I've noticed a difference. I used to, if I want to get pec pump, I would just run 2 minutes on each side of the pec, and I would have a really great, chest workout.
Okay.
But yeah, for me in treatment, I use it to facilitate more neurological activity to the musculars. Then I'll slap on the newbie, and then I'll go up and work some of the upper body, and then take the pads off. Let's say if we're doing lower body, take the pads off of there, then, and then kind of switch and do my hands-on work on the legs. So yeah, I use the gun to more facilitate blood flow, facilitate more neurological responses to that musculature, to bring that sensation to it. So kind of prepare the brain for that neurological input to get a better output.
It almost sounds too like you're using it as like a warm up to the newbie.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
instead of throwing somebody straight into the deep end with it.
Yeah, no, I kind of warm everything up, kind of, facilitate, because there's some people that don't respond well to the newbie. Some people don't like that electrical stimulation, right? So like there's some, like I'll do like a hot and cold test on some people, like, hey, does this feel like this on this leg? Like, no, this actually feels colder than this side. So there's like a sensitivity issue going on over here on the side. So I do a warm, cold test, a touch test as well, to kind of see what kind of sensations. It's kind of like, hey, I have this going on in this leg. I'm like, okay, well, does this feel like this? Like, no, okay, is this hotter or colder on this side? Like, well, that's colder, but on the other side, I felt more touch. So it's pretty, you kind of have to, yeah. So there's different things.
Is that autoimmune trigger? Is that like trigger autoimmune?
I think it's more like nerves.
Okay.
More like a neurological thing. Like they get different sensations on one side because maybe one side is compensating for the other. So one's taking on more of the load, and then the other side, and the other one's, I want to say asleep. I hate when people say, oh, your glutes are asleep. I was like, no, they're just lacking neurological activity. It's not asleep. It's still working. It's just not working as much as it should. But anyways, I digress. But so with the sensations, that's more of like a neurological thing that's happening there. So they're just getting like more sensation on one side than the other.
And is that so? Then when you see that, is that an indicator that it's time to bring the newbie in for somebody?
Typically, yeah, I'd say. Sometimes I can have that intensity. I usually keep the frequency pretty high, which the max is 500. So I usually typically keep it at 500, and I can go to like the intensity to like 10, which is nothing. It's 10 out of 100% intensity.
Oh
my God, that's way too much. And I turn the frequency down. And like, how's that? Still too much. I'm like, okay, let me turn it down again. And then like, okay, that's a little bit better. So you kind of have to play with the frequency and the intensity of it. So that's that way it makes your body feel safe. It's not like feeling attacked in a sense. So it kind of helps bring that, kind of tells signals to bring like, hey, this is okay. This is actually helping, so.
And so I mean, you're within this industry as much as anybody from all these different perspectives. Maybe a silly question, I'm not really sure, but what are the most common things that you see from bodybuilders coming in? Like, is it so common that, like you were saying, like quote unquote, the glutes are asleep because everybody sits at a desk all day, or is it, name XYZ? I'm really asking you, like, what do you see as a common theme with bodybuilders that many of us need work on, if any?
A lot of it's shoulder. There's a lot of shoulder issues with a lot of people. Like they say, man, I get a lot of shoulder pain in the front when I'm pressing. Like, and you ever see someone pressing and then they get finished with their set, they drop it, and they're always like rubbing the front of their chest.
Yeah,
you ever see
that's
that?
Me. Yeah, that's me. I live that life every day.
It's like, hey, bro, that's not where it's stemming from. It's like it's a lot of it's coming from your external internal rotators, which is the scapularis muscles. So I mean, you got the scapularis, and then of course you got the infra and supraspinatus, the muscles that sit on top of the scapula, which plays a role in the external internal rotators. And so that those are generally the typical issues I work with a lot of bodybuilders, because they lack the capsular space in the joint. So what I like to say, which I learned from Dr. Spina, FRC, functional range conditioning, he says, joint capsule is one of the most important things, because you can't move. So let's say someone says, all right, put your hand over your head and like put as high as you can go. What do? They extend back, right? To get that full range of motion.
Arch their lower back.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, I was like, well, you can't really do an overhead press because your overhead press is here.
Right.
It's like, are you going to do, it's almost like, well, I'm going to do a pull up, but you can't move here, like front chest. You can only move here. So you're going to do a pull up this way, you know?
Right.
So yeah, what I tell everyone, you can't move or you can't move. So you got to work that capsular space and that internal strength of that tissue to be able to take on that load that you're doing, whatever you're pressing, right? So I think that's a lot of people that needs to work on not only just the soft tissue work, but also the joint of that capsular space that happens in the hips as well as in the shoulder. So the more capsular space you have, the more room you have to work with.
And then the less room you have to work with, right?
Right. And so the more you work, yeah. And so there's some people who are like, all right, give me your range. I'm like, we're here. I'm like,
yeah.
I was like, yeah. I was like,
So
not only
then
do you have muscles that are tight that are causing that or inhibiting that, you also have the joint because you're losing that capsular spacing. So there's not enough space for it to move. So once you create more spacing, which people can do what I call CARs, controlled articulate.
Man, I was just going to ask. That was what I was going to ask. If that's something that you're using.
So yeah, it's like, you know,
let's go into car. I don't want to assume everybody listening knows those.
You're right.
So let's talk about cars. What are they? What's the application to using them?
So CAR stands for controlled articulate rotations. Basically, it's basically the range of motion that you have in space. So like I said, you can't move where you can't move. So addressing those joints and those movements. So basically, you want to maximum. What we're looking for first is to maximize the ability for the joint capsule to function, right? So it's the joint is the deepest tissue in any joint. So your joint capsule doesn't function. Training your superficial muscles is almost a waste of time sometimes, right? So when you move, your brain receives messages from your joint capsule first. So the first bit of information that you get go to the brain from your joint capsule. So the way to access the joint capsule differs from person to person depending on the joint we were discussing. Let's say for the hips and shoulders, it tells creating what is known as axial rotation, right? So in the joint, when the joint rotates along the axis of the bone, example of a drill like hip capsule, let's say like the 90-90, right? You're sitting 90-90. Basically, another thing you want to work on is increasing the range of motion of that. But as I said, you need to be able to train the nervous system to utilize those ranges of motion. So you're not just passively stretching. So you want to emphasize a combination of stretching with isometrics. So it prepares the tissue to function in that newly acquired range. So that might mean contracting the tissue we're stretching, right? Because you can contract in certain ways. Like, so you kind of, let's say if you're doing internal rotation, you're finding a force this way. Like you can have a band and kind of force that resistance, right? And then contracting the shortening tissue on the opposite side of the joint. So that will help as far as open up a lot of the joint space in the hips and the shoulders.
Yeah, I love them. I have them in every client's plan. My face lit up when you mentioned them because I'm like, hell yeah, we must be doing something all right then.
Right.
I have everybody do them with their shoulders, and then if they're training anything lower body, they're going to do them with their hips too. Right. And let me tell you something. For me, just personally, like I did have these shoulder issues and all these different things. Those alone, like you said, nothing is magic, but shoulder cars especially were a pretty big game changer for me for how just low cost that, like, it costs you nothing. It's 4 minutes of your day. Like
literally do it throughout the day, like randomly, right? Do like 2 to 3 minutes. So, I mean, I tell people mobility is just like the other tenets of athleticism. You got power, strength, speed, right? It requires its own objective measure so you can continually and progressively adapt to that mobility. So you got to work on that adaptation of that new motion.
And then especially like in our field too, like for most of the people listening to this, they're going to continuously be getting bigger, which just sounds like they're going to continually limit their ability to move if it's not something you're actively working on.
Right. For sure. Some people think of mobility as somehow less important. like it just be thrown into your warm up. And I just don't believe that. I think that mobility is not only equal to all other tenets of, your athleticism or training, right? It's actually more important because of your mobility gives you the guidelines as to your prerequisites of what you're capable of doing. So if you want to improve your mobility, you have to objectively be able to measure what is your training and how are you progressing your training. So that helps. If you want to be stronger, you have to progressively lift more weight, right? If you want to be more powerful, you have to get progressively stronger or faster, right? There are always parameters to it. So with mobility, there's no mention of progressive adaptation, right? So of how are you making the body adapt? It's just, it's not just as easy as doing it 5 to 10 minutes, right? You do before a really important workout. So mobility is, like I said, it's more important than what you're about to do in your workout, because if the mobility is not there, the workout becomes damaging, or it could be dangerous too, depending on. So sometimes it's crazy during looking at people's ranges of motion, their posture, the way they move. You can almost see like, oh, that shoulder may give out one day, or that may,
We need to talk after this, man. I'm concerned now.
Because take my friend Ryan Crowley, tore his pec, right? He was having shoulder issues, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't his bad shoulder it was his compensating shoulder that pec tore. So it's your body is like muscle overuse and imbalances will stack stress, on the body every day. So if you left it unchecked, can manifest a lot of debilitating injuries.
Compounds. Yeah, absolutely.
So
a lot of people who've torn muscles have said that they didn't feel right leading into that tear on that day, like reps before, the sets before, like there was, and I've had, strains and stuff where it was like, I could tell something was off, and I, turned the other way and tried to grit my teeth and push through it. And all it takes is
that
one split second.
Yep. I felt a little bit one time training. I was like, I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to go slap on the newbie for a little bit, and I'm going to do a couple of different mobility work here, and I'll continue again. And it was actually better. So yeah, if you start feeling that, then definitely, if you start feeling anything off, I would get it addressed.
Yeah. No. And then where do you see, so we're talking about hips, shoulders. How does that translate into issues with posing? Because I think there's this new space coming to light where we can use Bodywork to kind of pinpoint posing issues and to also teach posing cues to the up and come. Because like many of us, I just got on YouTube 10 years ago and tried to teach myself how to pose. There was no coaches, there was no anything available. And I still 10 years later, posing is the hardest part of a contest prep for me, is like figuring out how to make your body contract all the muscles and do all the cues on stage to show your physique. So how do you see a lot of the injuries that are most common to bodybuilders? How does that project into posing issues?
Like I said earlier, it's a lot of the capsular space, and you have a lot of people having issues getting that back double, right? Yeah. It's like they can't. I was like, I can't open my lats. I was like, well, it's because you can't external rotate far enough because you lack in that capsular space. So we can work the tissue and all that, but you got to work the joints on your own as well. Which I could put someone through a FRC session and working a lot of like internal strength and external work to kind of really facilitate, kind of like you had Joe, you did cars, like you done like level 1, level 2, level 3, which they're all pretty tough. Because so I would have people start out with doing level 1 first, just to facilitate that movement, and then level 2, grip it with a lacrosse ball,
like a ball,
stand against a wall or a squat rack, so you don't move, start extending other body parts. So I think of a lot of bodybuilders who have issues with their posing, if they would incorporate that along with soft tissue work too, to kind of help loosen up the muscles and help as far as relieving the tension from the muscles surrounding those joints, I think that'll help facilitate better posing, especially when it comes to like, I can't open up my lat spread. It's like, oh, because you can't, this is locked up, or your teres are your joints of your shoulder blades aren't rolling the way they're supposed to because there's no space in there. I know I keep saying space, but it's just that's what it is. The
No, it
capsular
makes
space.
sense. Yeah.
So if they had more of that, they definitely would have way. I think a lot of people would be look a lot wider, and look, especially in that back double, like that lat would really flare out if they could really push it back. Because you can
Man, I
see
feel
The peaks on the bicep would also stand taller if you can really
really
yeah,
good.
oh yeah.
that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Everything, your front delta is going to present better. Like,
Yeah.
and you mentioned, like, I feel like I see that the bigger the guys get, like we're talking like even like you look at most of the guys in the top 5 or top 6 at the Olympia have the size, but they have also done all the work to do the posing too.
Yeah.
But like, you look at like kind of the back end of the Olympia, man, and I was pretty let down with some of the posing as a fan, just like in that back half of the lineup, to where, like you were saying, like guys are looking smaller and worse than I know how they look, just
Right.
because they can't present. And like the back double's the obvious one because you could see
Right.
yourself fighting, the elbows aren't
Right.
lined up.
And,
But even
they're extending their back as far as they can too, which it'll help, but it only
helps.
Yeah.
But I was going to say too, the front double. I mean, that's the first
Oh
shot that
God,
you
I've seen one like this. I was like,
man, I hate to say it. I'm a huge fan. We give him credit all the time, but Ian is the first guy that jumps out at me when you just showed like how his, like,
here, right?
exactly. And it's like, dude, you have one of the biggest, everyone talks about how massive your back is, like just relaxed, or when you're in the gym, just relaxed. And then he gets on stage and he can't show it from either direction. And it's like, man, this is the difference between you being 6th or 11th.
If I have the opportunity to work on him, which I hopefully does, I mean, maybe I can get Michaela to whisper a little bug in his ear.
Yeah.
And let me do
man,
some
you'd be
work
doing the bodybuilding industry a service just as fans, because we want to see it.
Yeah. And so I think if we work on that, joint capsule and working those busters that surround it, I think it would make a significant improvement. I'm not sure who does his body work, or if he even does. Well, hit me up. I'm not too far if he's in Florida. So.
Sales pitch.
Not hard to find, not to.
Yeah.
Where are you at with I would say the last 18 months, there's been this big craze with lat training in specific.
Yeah.
I've played a part in it. Joe's played a part in it. We've drank some of the Kool-Aid, and I've got clients doing one-arm shit. So is it fair to say that potentially a lot of lat development issues are from shoulder mobility issues rather than not knowing how to train the lat?
I think so, because kind of like I said, you can't move where you can't move, right? So you see a lot of people they rotate, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you want to stay in that plane, so and driving that elbow back into that in that continuum. So there's a lot of people that their range will stop here because they just lack that spacing there, and so I think that, and they have to compensate to doing that rotation. Are they getting the lat? Sure, they're getting the lat, getting some of the teres too, of course, but I mean it's not like they're. I mean we had to put some what is it, EGM monitors on to kind of really see what they're facilitating there too. But I'm sure they're still getting activated. But yeah, I think that's part of the reason too, lacking that that joint capsule space is preventing them from improving a lot more, in my opinion. And I'm always curious of how many of these guys really focus on body work, and if they really work with someone that's competent enough or know what they're doing too. So I know a lot of these guys do get body work. Some of the stuff I see, I'm like, it's just nothing too impressive. Which I always recommend people too who want to help someone with online with like FRC stuff, because though I'm certified in it, I'm not as competent as my good friend Nick Chan. He's in Canada. He actually came down here to Tampa. We collaborated with a couple clients, and it made a significant improvement. So it's really cool to see how we can mesh NST and FRC and the newbie, and how it can facilitate better and faster results for people. So I thought that was really cool. So that was kind of like a little testing point of how our stuff goes hand in hand, and it does faster results. But yeah, sorry, went on a little tangent there but yeah, no, Nick Chan does the really good FRC. He's actually helped Heli Trevino get back on the Olympia stage, because she was going to pull out and not do it, and she flew him to Dubai and for a week and did a lot of FRC stuff, and she was able to hop on that stage. So yeah, Nick Chan's another option too, everyone. So shout out to my boy if he ends up watching this. So
Yeah, no, we're gonna you mentioned him when I was talking to you about this episode and where we want to take this particular segment of the network in general.
Yeah.
So we'll reach out to him and get him on. I'd love to get both of you on together too.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That actually made me think too, how it, because I mean, bodybuilders, as we get bigger, I've noticed like how you sleep affects mobility and movement patterns too. I feel like any male ends up diverting to this on the side with a pillow here, a pillow here, like we're just padding all the voids. How do you go about, diagnosing sleep issues that may be causing the mobility issues?
Man, you're just doing it you're not doing it subconsciously, right? You're doing it you're not doing it like on purpose. It's like me, I start on my back and then I end up on my side. I'm like, oh, it's just like you don't know that you're doing it. You just kind of do it, by default in a sense. It's like whatever's comfortable for your body. I believe in bolstering that can help, like getting all the different pillows in different positions. I believe there's some merit to that and helping kind of help alleviate that. But yeah, a lot of the sleeping patterns, like I have people that come to me like, man, I slept wrong and my shoulder's all messed up. I can't even turn my neck, and I'm like, do you sleep on your side? Like, yeah. Do you wake up with numbing, tingling down your hand? Yep. No. Yeah, a little bit of nerve entrapment going on due to the subscapular nerve of the scapularis from the infrasuperspinatus causing that impingement numbing feeling. So
I'm gonna ask for a friend then. If someone was having those issues, what would they do to mitigate them?
To mitigate that, you better make some friends with a lacrosse ball if you want to do it on your own. So usually it would be, I usually do like a peanut. I'll get like a tube sock, put 2 lacrosse balls in it. That we have a nice little peanut there. And kind of that way you cover more surface area, so you can always roll the teres here.
Okay.
Then also you can get against the wall and you'll easily find the hot spot on your infrasuperspinatus. So you find that, kind of rotate, move, kind of hold some static pressure there until it kind of alleviates. And then another one is like the levator scapula. That one's really tough to get, but you'll find that position because you'll feel it when you turn your neck. And you kind of have to facilitate your neck and move your arm in certain positions with the lacrosse ball sitting there. It's gonna be painful, but you hold that static pressure, it should help alleviate some of those issues. So that's kind of self therapy work you could do to kind of help.
Okay, noted. I'll tell this friend that I was talking about.
Yeah,
I use the Smith machine on that levator scapula. I'll unrack it and I'll kind of just like you were just doing. I do that. Yeah. I just figured that out based off of, I thought I woke up with a kink in my neck, and then I do the pre-workout, and it's like that little bit of pressure for 30 seconds to a minute. Yeah. Almost like lets the tension off here so this arm can then extend outward. Yep, you're doing it right. So yeah, you can always do that with a Smith machine or any type of, you can find a squat rack to do it too, or if it's on a certain level, you can get like the little ball, like the Smith machine, like the Cybex, the GOAT Smith machine. You can get like that little ball that's at the end of the thing and just kind of mash in there too. So that's another thing you can do as well. Or another cool thing is a device I tell people they should probably pick up. It's called a Theracane. It looks like a cane with like little like balls at the end. It's like it looks like a cane. You can find different hot spots like within like the scapularis, or not scapularis. Well, I guess you could in the infrasuperspinatus, and also kind of like upper trap, middle trap area where the levator kind of connects to on top of the board of the scapula. So a Theracane is another good option to have on hand too. It's kind of I feel like you've just been talking through my soul this entire time. So I'm taking mental notes here. Yeah. And then one other thing, because you mentioned earlier, and I just the way you said it, it kind of caught my attention. You had mentioned like teaching people how to properly use a foam roller or a lacrosse ball or whatever. Explain that, because I've gone to like a functional medicine specialist and tried to work through different stuff, and you inevitably you get kind of conflicting information. You have people that will tell you to roll over a spot, like you kind of use as an example that was no good. And then I've had people, like certain things, certain areas like your performance or your glute or whatever, where I've been told to just sit on it and find the spot for a minute and then leave it. So in your experience, is that more the correct way when you're saying that? I like in a sense, like finding those hot spots, but not sitting on for like a minute. I'd say
I'd say go to a pain level where it's not over 7 on your personal 10 scale. So let's say like, oh crap, that's like at an 8. I was like, bring it down a notch, 1 or 2 notches. And so it's Davis's law, I believe. It's basically too much excitatory can cause spasm. Like a lot of people like to mash the shit out of their muscle. Like you can't bully a muscle into submission. It's just going to make it worse, right? So it's just like you're not doing yourself any favors. So you got to find that happy medium spot. I was like, okay, that's why it was too much pressure. Let me lighten up a little bit, and like, okay, then your brain will signal that neurological signaling to them, like to tell it to relax. So once you find that alleviate, you're like, oh, that feels good. Then roll to the next hot spot. So I'll tell people, we'll find the hot spot, hold it for about 10 to 15 seconds, around that 7 on your personal 10 scale. Hold it for 10 to 15 seconds. If it doesn't alleviate, go find another hot spot and then come back to that. So let it kind of relax a little bit and then go back to that spot. Use a little bit lesser pressure, and then it should find that should help that neurological response for that muscle to relax. So that's the best way, in my opinion, of what I've seen the outcomes for myself and others, is finding that happy medium range of pressure to alleviate that issue. So
beautiful.
Like, I tell a lot of people, like, man, I get severe lower back pumps after, like, when I do like RDLs or leg press or whatever, or hack squat, what have you. I was like, oh, here, it's right here. It's literally their TFL. You're rolling that. I dug my elbow, and one of guys like, dude, I got these major back pumps, and I got a long drive after this. Literally sat on his TFL on each side for about 5 minutes. He was like, holy shit, that's absolutely better.
Wow.
So if you can mitigate that using either a lacrosse ball or a foam roller on that TFL, if you're having those major lower back pumps, hitting the TFL will definitely help. Should definitely help alleviate that tension in the low back. So,
man, those are some gems of takeaways just in the last 5 minutes alone, man. For everybody listening to this, if you're listening to this, you should be pulling from this, because you're listening to this for a reason. You know who we are for a reason, and that's because you love to train. So all of us go through shit while we're training and with different injuries. That is probably some of the best information that I've heard on actually how to do it, because I think a lot of us have either taken some shit from YouTube, or somebody that made a good sales pitch on Instagram, or whatever the case is, or we've just been winging it. Honestly, I've been winging my foam rolling routine for a long time. So
try making that switch up, doing that, finding that, like I said, happy medium spot. And then also another tidbit too, for a lot of people doing that low back pain, not only your TFL, but also hit your glute medius as well, because you want to, anything that attaches to the hips is going to cause a lot of low back issues. So and if all else fails, get your freaking so right and hit that psoas up, or you can do it yourself. I try to show people you can do it on your own, but it's tough. They don't really get it. I was like, act like you put your fingers like this and act like you have a so right. You stand up and you flex forward and you kind of breathe into that. You sink into into your psoas. You can actually get it yourself too. It sucks, but
it does.
It helps.
There is no worse pain than getting your psoas released. It's
like reaching down your soul, man. So
my god,
major hip flexion, connects us to the L spine. A lot of people don't realize it crosses 3 points. It's not only in your midpoint, but also passing the pelvis and into your lower leg, into the lesser trochanter of your lower leg, of your upper leg. I'm sorry. So that's why people like, oh, I have a lot of groin pain. I was like, easy. I was like, if it's not adductor, more likely your psoas. I dig that psoas. I was like, holy shit, it's like, I feel like right in my left nutsack. I was like, yep, psoas. So that's exact pain. So if you're dealing with low back pain, hip pain, groin injuries, take out the psoas. If I had to work one muscle the rest of my life, it would probably be the psoas, just because it plays a role in a lot of different things.
And so if we don't have you in our area to do that, you think that so right is a decent tool? Yeah.
I think it's probably the better tool to use for sure. And you just got to be very careful with it. I have one client, he lives by it, but I swear he's like, I've been hanging on this thing for the last 20 minutes. I'm like, why? Just go on to something else, So
you're like, why? He's like, because I love torture. That's why.
Right.
I love pain.
More pain, please. but yeah, it's just so yeah, So Right could is another, I feel like, is a pretty good tool to have in your arsenal as far as like for some self therapy and relief.
Cool. Yeah, that's been one. I think, I think that one got a big plug. I think Rogan was plugging it for a
Oh,
while and
Rogan,
stuff.
yeah,
So
big plug. He was one of the main reasons, because I think almost
yeah.
every like YouTube ad or almost like Spotify ads, like, have you ever heard of the So Right? And it's just like
Yeah,
a little interview.
that and Athletic Greens, man. You listen to two of his podcasts, and now all of a sudden
Yeah,
you get that and Alpha Brain ads and shit, right?
right. Yeah.
No, but this was awesome, man. Tommy, anything else? I mean, we're creeping up on an hour, and Matt, you're a busy guy, so
I think from here, like, if Matt, you want to come back on and kind of make this semi-regular thing, we can, dive into all the poses and break down issues we see. Well, you see, we're just here to listen, but with mobility and how that can be, how you can improve your posing through your mobility routine, and how does one go about creating a mobility routine. I want to get Nick Chan on.
Yeah, that'll be great.
And with you. This is kind of like a whole segment we're going to try to open up moving forward, just because it's so valuable. I mean, just
it is
even if you're not a competitive bodybuilder and you're not posing, living without pain and still being able to train the way you want you can't put a price on that.
No, I mean, it's crazy. I have a lot of people that say, well, I just saw this part of getting old. I was like, no, pain is a request for change. It's your it's your check engine. It's your check engine light, right?
Pain is a request for change. Wow.
Yeah.
You should put that on a shirt, dude.
Yeah. I mean, so it's crazy. Like I said, I have a couple of clients that say, well, I was like, if your doctor says it's just part of getting old, fire them.
Find a new doctor.
Yeah. Because I was like, it's just part of getting older. I was like, no, it's not. Something's not right. It's your check engine light. It's like, yo, check the engine here. I need some more oil. I need I need a tune up, So yeah, I mean, life is better when it's pain free. So, I mean, I have plenty of people that could attest to that, to Tommy, I have another client. I was his last resort. He literally was nonchalant, like, hey dude, you're my last resort. I've heard about you. I don't know what you do, but I've seen every doctor. I've seen this. I've seen every type of therapist. I was like, you're it, man. So let's figure it out. And he's lifting like he used to back when he was bodybuilding for the first time in 5 years. And he's competing this year for the first time in 5 years. He's able to do legs because he was having debilitating knee pain, and wasn't able to train legs like he used to. He was having shoulder issues, and he's working out like nothing ever happened. He's like, I'm not 90%, I'm not 95%. He was like, I'm 110% on my legs now. So,
man, that's got to be such rewarding work that you do, because you're literally, you literally just gifted that guy back an entire segment of his life that wasn't available to him anymore.
Never seen someone just so like, he sent me a long message. Like, he's not one of those guys that gets all like emotional about anything,
Yeah.
But he literally sent me a message. I could hear his voice cracking. He's like, this is the first time ever in my life I was able to train legs with my dad, which was one of his favorite.
Nice.
So I was like, damn, that's really cool. That meant the world. So that was really cool to let him have that moment with his dad. So his original training partner, So
yeah, that's awesome, man.
Definitely,
that's going to be like a core memory that he has now.
Oh yeah, he's like,
that's awesome.
He's like, if I have to make a will, you're definitely going to put in it. I'm like, all right.
You're like, I'm holding you to that,
right? Yeah. So, and then
that's awesome. Man.
Like I was explaining earlier off camera with my new therapist Luke, who just joined me at my practice. He was actually a former client of mine. He was dealing with broke his foot in different places, and his ankle, and broke his ankle and foot. And he was seeing all these other people, wasn't getting results. He said he wanted to try to find someone who he wanted to become. And he found me, and I did work with him on 2 sessions. He was able to walk upstairs, able to walk backwards, stuff he wasn't able to do. And he was like, where the hell did you learn how to do this stuff? I told him about the school. Dude was working at a corporate office, like as an accountant, just pretty much like almost like a dead end job, almost
pencil pusher. Yeah.
And so pretty much he went selling from the pencil days to changing his career, all because of the treatment I've done. So now he's great. He's good.
Man, that's such a powerful thing too, that you mentioned, like his thought process was like, I want to find somebody that I want to become like.
Yeah.
That is such a fucking powerful thing, man.
Yeah,
That
man.
is such a for like I'm saying for you to be that person
yeah. No,
is
it's
I
crazy. I
think it
never would
just
have
speaks.
thought, man.
I think it just speaks volumes to the way that you must do business, but also the way that you must conduct yourself personally. Because you could see somebody. We always see people that are successful within their own field,
Right.
and there's a lot of people that I see that are successful that I would not say I want to find somebody that I need to be like, and it's him.
Right.
So
That's
kudos
pretty
to you,
cool,
man.
man.
It's
No,
it's obvious. It's obvious just from speaking with you, even remotely, that you love this shit, man. That you're all
oh
in on this
man,
shit,
dude,
and
it's
it
like
comes through when you work with people. Tommy
yeah,
and I work with people in terms of bodybuilding coaching or whatever. It's very obvious when somebody
right.
really cares and like lives for the work that they do, and it's obvious that that's you, man. So anybody that's listening, if whether or not you're in the area or not, I feel like they should be following you, and at the very least taking in the content that you're putting out, because it's super valuable, man. This whole podcast was super valuable.
Yeah, man. Thank you guys for having me on. It's
Yeah,
been great, man, chatting it up with you guys and talking about all this. And it's not work for me. It's just part of my day.
yeah.
If it wasn't for my wife, I'd probably be working all the time. And she knows that. Like she kind of has to
Yeah,
force me to come home in a sense. But no,
yeah.
I'm creating that balance for that. So now that I
Cool.
have a couple guys now. But anyways, but yeah, I really enjoy what I do. It's been life changing, not only for others, but for myself. And
Yeah, it
definitely
shows, man.
a ton of
Shows.
gratitude for everyone who gives me the opportunity and the trust with their care, and it means the world to me. So,
Yeah. All right, man. So we won't hold you any longer. What do you want to plug? Where can people find you? Instagram?
you guys can find me on Instagram. It's at Next Level or Nothing. I'm marketing myself as the muscle mechanic. Pretty much my business is called Next Level Pain Solutions. So I rebranded as the muscle mechanic at Next Level Pain Solutions. That's why for the handle is Next Level or Nothing.
Yeah.
So
And you're working at a MI40 gym. You have your practice at a MI40 gym in
I've got
Tampa.
2 offices in there. Yep.
Awesome, man. Really cool. Tommy, anything else for him?
That's it. As always, Matt. Can't wait till I see
Pleasure,
you.
man.
We'll cross paths somewhere in the U.S.
Well, we will, man. We crossed. First time we crossed paths was 2016 in Tinley Park. Is that right?
That's
Crazy.
right. And then we waited
Yeah.
7 years till Phoenix
Yeah.
and then
That's wild.
Orlando. So
Yeah.
that's the power of social media. I didn't bring that up, but like Matt and I have kept in touch for years on social media. He's talking about diagnosing overseas. Like he's helped me with stuff just from me relaying a DM to him, and he's helped me with stuff. So that's why I wanted to get him on here and kick this segment off with him specifically, just because the passion that, anybody that's made it this far can hear how much passion he has for what he does. And there's a lot of charlatans in the bodywork space and the coaching space and the industry in general. And, anybody that we put on this podcast is it's good people that actually care about getting the results based, and it can be seen too. Like you didn't bash any other modality. You just said, hey, it's not for me. If it works for you, go ahead.
Great. Yeah.
That's how it should be. If you get somebody in the bodywork space who's like anti something and they don't have an actual reason, stay away from that person because they're selling you something else.
Make sure they're licensed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Do your due diligence there too.
Yeah, due diligence there. You can look them up easily through your state health, like Florida Health Department. You can look up your state health department and look up people's licenses through their last name or their business name or whatever. I know there's some people who have a business, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're licensed in the practice too. So you can look up their LMT license number and all that. So be sure you do your due diligence on that. Make sure they got their certifications and all their and all the modalities that they're doing as well. So that way you're not spinning your wheels and wasting money on someone who doesn't know exactly what they're doing. They could be causing you more harm than good. Sure, you may feel good for 30 minutes after you leave, but
Right.
the majority of the people tend to go back to the same position they were before they came in. So
yeah, exactly. All right, Matt. Well, we'll let you go, man. Thanks again. Really appreciate it. Hoping to see you back on the show soon.
absolutely.
So for Matt Christman, for Tommy Styles, I'm Joseph PIRCHER. This was a Thinking Man's podcast. And until next time, guys, we are out.